Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission, to our March meeting. It is 6:49 p.m. March 15th, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. And start off by saying that pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted by remote participation. Recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time in the registration link at the top of the agenda. And with that, let's do our customary introductions. Let people know who we are. And looking at my screen, let's start off with Mr. Bauer.
Hi, I'm Dick Bauer. I'm an attorney and I was trained as a city planner, and I live in the Spring Hill neighborhood.
Mr. Bingham.
Alan Bingham. I live in a historic home in Ward 6.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Hi, I'm Robin Kelly, the Realtor representative on the commission, and I'm also the vice chair and a historic homeowner in Union Square in Ward 3.
Thank you. And I'm Eric Parks, the chair. I'm a historic homeowner in Ward 3, and I'm an architect. And staff, we have Ms. White.
Yes, I'm Sarah White. I'm a senior planner in the Preservation Planning and Zoning Division of the City of Somerville.
And Ms. Chekowitz.
Hello, I am Wendy Chekowitz. I am a planner with the Planning, Preservation and Zoning Division.
You all. And let's just look at the agenda. The first thing on our list is a memorandum of agreement for 108 to 110 Prospect Street. And have people had a chance to review that? And if so, are there any comments?
So I wanted to raise the question of whether we have really gotten enough out of this memorandum of agreement to justify shortening the time period.
Mr. Chair, if I may, through you, what else would you suggest, Mr. Bauer, as part of that? What else would you like to see there?
Well, I don't know if there's any, I mean, the next step would be some more substantial preservation of the property. I understand that that is a big move from where it currently is. And it may not be practical to think that we could get there, but if not, then the question is whether we want to settle for what's in the memorandum of agreement or whether we would rather just say, let's just wait out the time period.
Mr. Bauer, are there particular components that you're wanting to see preserved?
I don't know that there are particularly. This is a property that we had identified as being preferably preserved. And so I was, before we let it go, want to raise the question about whether what we're getting in the memorandum of agreement is enough to justify letting go of it now, or whether we should say it's not enough and we'd rather wait out the time period.
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may I offer that there might be another option too, which is we don't feel that that the commission doesn't feel that there is enough. If that is the will of the commission, that the commission doesn't feel that there's enough in this memorandum of agreement, and rather than making it a binary situation of, you know, we don't agree with this MOA, therefore you now need to wait out the time period, have it continue to go back to negotiation, but with specific desires of the commission noted, so that I can bring that back to the applicant. Assuming that's how the others feel as well, unless the others feel that they're comfortable with the MOA. But I think that that's for you all to discuss.
And that's where
I'm sorry, Madam Vice Chair.
I was just going to say that's where I'm a bit lost. I'm not clear what specific components of this property. I think, you know, we found that it is historically significant. in its totality as it stands, but I don't know that there are specific items, to be salvaged, like cornices or doors or, specific architectural pieces. So I just think we need to be clear as to what specifics items there might be to go back about, but otherwise, if there are not, in the absence of that, I think we need to move forward, with the photographic and architectural drawing documentation and the modification of plans for the new building as described in the MOA.
If I may, Madam Vice Chair, to that point, I have seen the photos of the interior of the building. Those tend to be, since we do ask for those things, those tend to be the quickest things that applicant teams are able to provide. So I have looked through it, and one of the things that I always look for is components to salvage, either salvage and reuse within the new construction, remain in situ if part of the building is being reused, or to be provided if they are historically noteworthy or just a really good quality of particular craftsmanship of a particular period, to look for donating it to a salvage yard and providing proof thereof. I'm very particular about what I ask for, and so there is a lot I think that I would see as worthy, perhaps more than most applicants do. And I have to say that in this one, I did not find that there was much of anything left on the interior of the building after reviewing all the photos from that perspective.
Thank you.
I do notice, Mr. Chairman, that the attorney for the applicant team is here. I don't know if she has any comments or if she is also here for another case, but if it's acceptable to the chair, I'd like to unmute Ann Vigorito.
Sure, definitely.
In the event that you have any questions for her. Ann,
Yep.
you're unmuted on, oops.
Hey, Sarah, Ann Vigorito
Okay.
here. I'm also joined by Evan Stellman. He is the architect that worked on the MOA with staff and myself. I've listened and Evan has been listening. Of course, we'd like to move forward. But as Sarah White had described, I mean, if there's some specifics that you would want to see incorporated, we are more than, happy to listen to that. I think at this time, that's all I can really say. I mean, we were happy with the MOA and I think staff was too, but ultimately the board has to be happy with it. So if there are other things you think we're missing, we're more than happy to discuss them, but if we could just have those specifics, that would be helpful.
Thank you. I'm just scrolling through the before and after proposal, and I see your point, Mr. Bauer. I feel like in this particular case, in that this structure, I wouldn't say it's a one-off, but once it's gone, there's not much on the exterior in terms of detailing or ornamentation that to me is really salvageable. And I'm just looking at the proposed plan. Obviously it's a 4-story instead of a 3-story, but it seems to retain the use of clapboards. It has thicker corner boards. It has a heavier eave line, which all sort of pick up on what the original building had. It doesn't keep to the character of bay windows. I don't know if that's super necessary. So my personal feeling is, given the context and the neighborhood of this and the extent to which this tries to retain some semblance of historic cladding and more or less symmetrical patterns on it, it sort of captures an older spirit that way. But I couldn't really look at the original building and say, yeah, I want you to do that. I don't want double bays or something like that. And I don't really see anything I could point at and say that we should reuse that element. So that's my first thought on that. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I do not. I'm satisfied with the MOA as it's presented.
What about you, Ellen?
Unknown caller.
Well, when I look at this, I see a place that's been, if you'll forgive the term, modernized, which means they've knocked off brackets and done all sorts of things with windows and so on. But the original structural integrity of the place looks to be intact. The form and massing seem to be intact. And while a lot of the trim and stuff has been changed, it seems like it wouldn't be a great task to actually restore it to what it was. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, where Mr. Bauer was going was that, you know, maybe this is a structure that we're going too quickly into an MOA to demolish, whereas we should be looking at this under the preferably preserved as something that we should be discussing more with the applicant as a restoration and reuse rather than a demolish and rebuild. We seem to be very keen these days to rebuild things and to knock down existing structures. And I look at this and I see a structure which I believe could be restored and reused quite elegantly. I don't know if is that where you were going with this, Mr. Bauer?
The answer is maybe. I mean, I was really not sure, which is why I answered the questions of what I was proposing to include. I didn't have any particular suggestions of things to include, but I was, I think, asking the kind of question that you're asking, Mr. Bingham, which is whether we are being too quick to just say, well, we'll let this one go.
Because it is reasonably unique, being a sort of a twin building, isn't it? And when you look at a streetscape, it's consistent. What we've got is that we've got triple deckers basically on one side, and then further down, we've got next to it on the north side, we've got a double decker, then more triple deckers. This is a triple as well, so with a double front. So I think it does maintain a streetscape. And if I recall back when we looked at this for significance, these were things that we had considered as being important in the historical definition of historically significant.
So, Mr. Chairman, what it sounds like to me is that we have two board members who would like to see more work done between staff and the applicant. And well, I haven't heard what you've had to say yet, but at least one member that is okay with it as it is. So depending on how you feel, Mr. Chairman, this might be a situation whereby you know, the HPC decides to have staff and the applicant go back for further discussion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think so. I just wanted to, as you mentioned, have a clear direction for the applicant. And if that instruction is contemplate other ways to keep the existing building, then we should say that. That's obviously a bit more for them to chew on than you know, reuse a door hood or something. So, but if it's a benefit to bat this around for another month and look at those or whatever. How many months are we into this demo on this one?
Wendy, I'd have to look to you on that, but I don't think it's actually that many, maybe 4 or 5.
No.
I think if I remember correctly, it was August or September. Let me look.
Really?
Yes, I think you're right, August.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah. So we're 7 months in. And this is an 18-month delay.
Yeah, I'm as I mentioned, I'm a little more ambivalent about it, but I would certainly respect the desire to product this one a little bit more. So if we want, I would go along with Mr. Bauer and Mr. Bingham on having this one discussed more with staff and the applicant.
Okay. All right. Because even if you're ambivalent on it, even if you came down on the side of being wanting to accept it, we would have a vote that would have we'd have 2 yays and 2 nays, so you'd cancel each other out, regardless. So, I'm trying to think, you should, I think that the cleanest way to do this is that you should, motion to continue this, discussion to a later meeting, in order to allow for staff and the applicant to, continue further discussions, on the MOA. That is what I would recommend.
Okay, and who makes, is that a,
Well,
I think
they don't,
Probably I should make,
yeah,
probably I should be the one who makes that motion.
okay,
right.
but does that have to be agreed to by the applicant in this? meeting?
No, this doesn't. It's not like a determination of historic significance or preferably preserved where there is a specific time frame in which you have to make a determination.
Okay, then I would entertain that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So for,
Okay. All
Um,
right. Thank you very much. I will have the department assistant set up a follow-up MOA meeting, and we can, and I'll talk, and Ann and Evan, I'll talk with you folks at that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is an advisory review for CPA HP funding projects for 83 Belmont Street. And this is a draft preservation restriction. We're not voting on this, it's just for us to weigh in on it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's correct.
I had a look at it. Isn't it, everybody else had a chance to look it over?
Yeah.
And I don't really have any comments on it. I think it's in depth. Covers a lot of bases.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if the commission is okay, then you could entertain a motion to allow for the chair of the commission to sign the CPA Historic Preservation MOA on behalf of the commission.
Okay, so we were looking for a motion to allow me to sign the MOA on behalf of our commission.
So moved.
Second,
Seconded.
I think Mr. Bingham, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Aye.
and I vote yes as well, aye. So that is that. We're moving on now to alterations to local historic district property.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, on the Belmont Street, I just want to note, this is a property which is quite an important building, was not in a historic district. We used a small amount of CPA funding to repair a stained glass window after it was damaged during a fire, and the homeowners agreed to have it be subject to permanent restrictions. And I just want to acknowledge my appreciation to them for being willing to do that.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I was impressed also. They seem to be committed to the protection of their property.
Yes, if I can, Mr. Chairman, to follow up on that, they received Community Preservation Act money under the historic preservation category to restore a portion of the building. And one of the provisions of CPA when you receive historic preservation funds is you must agree to a preservation restriction on the entirety of the exterior of your structure. These particular homeowners wanted to go further than that and protect elements on the interior voluntarily. So that is the difference between this and a lot of the other preservation restrictions that you see as a result of CPA monies being granted.
Thank you. Okay. The next case then is HPC.ALT 2022.03, 15 Campbell Park. The applicant is Mike Tocatlian, owner is Victor Del Porto. And is the applicant here for this case?
Anne, I don't know if you're representing this case, but if you're not, can you put your hand down for the moment? Thank you. All right. I do not see the applicant team in the attendees list.
Okay. Well, let's put that one aside until they show up. And the next case then is HPC.ALT 2022.09, which is 17 through 19 Aldersey Street. Applicant is Paul Morgan. Owner is ZD Aldersey LLC. Do we have, oh, I'm not sure how far I should take this. We have Robin has to recuse herself, as I understand it.
That's right. So Ms. Endries is a past client of mine, and so I need to recuse myself from this case.
Okay. And with that, we no longer have a quorum for this case. And I believe there's been a discussion already about continuing it, this particular one.
Just a point of order on that, Mr. Chair Parks, is that because there was a past relationship, and it's not a current relationship or a proposed future relationship, does that mean that the vice chair needs to excuse herself from this? I mean, something in the history that happened?
I could answer that if you'd like, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Bingham, ultimately, if if a board member feels that it's in their best interest or in the best interest of the board to recuse themselves, they can decide that on their own. And I think for, whatever reasons, Vice Chair Kelly thinks that, it'd be best for her to recuse herself. It was not an order from the city that she recuse herself, but I think that this is just her decision that she feels that would be best.
Okay, fine. It's just that as I understand it, that if somebody has no further interest and can look at this objectively without any bias, then they don't need to recuse themselves.
Right. And sometimes they don't want there to be an appearance of bias, even though that they feel they can render a decision without that. Sometimes they just don't like the appearance of it. So that
appearance of bias is just the same as bias itself.
That's my understanding, Mr. Bingham, too, is that it's technically speaking, Robin or Mr. Kelly you can attend, but it's a personal thing. And I think I've done that before too, where someone is a neighbor or something.
Just checking.
So if we continue this, though, do we not need a quorum to continue it? Or no, the applicant will sign a request. Okay. But do we need to vote to accept that request without Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. But if we don't have a vote to vote, do you see where I'm going? Well,
I do. I think we might be overthinking it sometimes because in this particular case, you could acknowledge that it's been received and that the applicant has requested a continuance to a future date. Or you could ask Vice Chair Kelly to come on and vote on that, but that just seems to be sticking the issue a little bit more.
Okay.
She could vote on a continuance, couldn't she? Because of a lack of quorum otherwise.
I think that's probably the correct procedure, would be to have her vote on the continuance.
Yeah, I would think that she's not technically weighing in on the merits of their case. That if she's okay with it, I won't have any way to either.
I'm fine with that.
What did you think, Dr. Kelly?
I'm fine participating in the vote to continue.
Okay.
Until there is a quorum.
So In that case, I would entertain a motion to agree to continue 17 through 19 Aldersey Street.
So moved.
Oh,
Okay, and second with Ms. Brigham.
Yeah.
All in favor? All opposed? Okay, I'm doing a roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we will hear this case next month. Do we, before I go on, do we have 15 Campbell Park if they've arrived? Okay.
Not that I see yet.
Then let's move on to the next case, which is 145 Central Street. This is HPC.ALT 2022.11. 145 Central Street. Applicant is Josh Softy, owner Josh Softy as well. Are you here, Josh?
One moment. All right, Josh, you are unmuted. I think you are still. Okay, there you go. You're unmuted now.
Thank you. Hi, this is Josh Safdie.
Welcome. Do you want to just give us a quick rundown of what you're proposing?
Sure. So we've spoken about my house previously on a couple of occasions, and I've put a pause on thinking about what to do with the existing rear deck, but the house is badly in need of replacement windows, which is a project that received a certificate of appropriateness already from the HPC. I've known for some years that both the exterior clapboards and the interior lath and plaster show the former presence of two windows on the first floor on the Medford Street elevation that were taken out at some point, probably for privacy or something else. So if you walk by the house, you can see that the clapboards have been replaced. There's no alligatoring of the paint and that kind of thing. And on the inside, there's sort of perfect cracking, outlining where the rough opening of the original windows were. So at the same time that I am hoping to replace the windows that are in there now, which are circa 1980 aluminum double pane, most of which have failed, I wanted to reuse the existing rough openings that are buried inside the wall at the moment and bring two more windows to the Medford Street elevation. They would be right in line with the windows on the floor above on the same elevation, and their heads and sills and rough opening size would match the other first floor windows that are going in. They'll be the exact same windows that have been approved for the rest of the house. It would just be two additional ones in rough openings that don't currently exist, but used to exist.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a member of the public who wants to speak?
Any member of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand. You'll be given 2 minutes to say your comment on the subject application. Mr. Chairman, I do not see anyone with their hands raised. I'm going to do one last pass through and then I think we can close the public comment.
All right.
All right, there's no one with their hand up.
Thanks. I'll close the public comment portion of this case. We can take it up with commission. I don't know what you all think, but I have no problem at all with this. I think the facade would certainly support those two windows, and it sounds like they were there anyway. All I have to say.
I think this is a great project. I love the idea of reclaiming the existing framed openings buried inside the wall, and using the windows that have already been approved and matching the trim on side of the building, which it appears that that is the plan. And so I am very much in favor of this project.
I agree with you completely. I think it'll look good.
I agree too.
Okay, sounds unanimous. Well, if you like it, then we could move to a vote.
Yes, I move that we vote to approve the installation of 2 new window openings at 145 Central.
I second that.
Mr. Bingham, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Do a roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham. Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So, there you have it.
Thanks very much for your time and for your approval.
You're gonna replace the tree that used to be growing out of that wall too?
No, no, the tree's gonna stay gone, but we do hope once that work's done to try and figure out what plants will survive there, because everything we've ever put there has not survived. But I think between the fence and the traffic calming actually that the city put in at that corner, we might keep cars a little bit further away and manage to grow something there.
Tough spot.
Yeah, I think you're doing a good job on your house, frankly.
Thank you. It's slow and steady, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Do we have 15 Campbell Park here yet?
Mr. Chairman, no. We did reach out to them in email just to remind them that the meeting was happening and to give them a chance to log on. So if you're comfortable with it, waiting till essentially the end of the meeting to see if they get on.
I'll do that rather than ask every case. So the next case on our list then is HPC.ALT 2022.14, 74 Mount Vernon Street. The applicant is Eddie and Melody Giron. I'm not exactly sure. My apologies if I mispronounce the name. Owner is Eddie Giron. Are they here?
Yes. Victor, can you unmute Eddie Giron? And I also apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly. And I don't see Melody here separately, so.
Yes, Melody is my daughter. She helped me up to fill up the paperwork because I don't really know exactly how to do it. But she lives in the 3rd floor in the house, and she been help me to get this process and try to get it fixed the house. And first of all, good afternoon to everybody. You know, my name is Eddie Giron, and the reason for this meeting is because we want to replace the windows. We was gonna thinking just replace the windows, but when we see the trim is really nothing to can hold the windows, we send all the pictures from the 4 different elevations. All the trims are different. They don't match. Look, and 6 or 8 of the windows have been replaced before for the same type of windows we want to install in the rest of the house. And basically, what we want to do, make it the house looks good, you know, replacing the trims, the windows. I haven't planned to paint it. And there is a lot of the moldings. All the windows have a different exterior moldings. We send the pictures, and we wanna just match it the best we can for all the windows to look like the original, because it's being replaced and, like I say, doesn't really match either one. Some in the rear elevations looks like in the windows is all rotted out around the windows and doesn't even have a trim. We need to put the trim in order to water don't go in. We email some of the pictures in the like a month ago, we even have like a half an inch gap in the windows inside. We get water, snow inside, it's deteriorating the interior of the house. We really need to replace the windows, you know.
Okay. Thank you. All right, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case?
Mr. Chairman, any members of the public who wish to speak, please raise your hand. You'll have 2 minutes to speak on this case. All right. Ron, I saw your hand go up. If you would still like to make public comment on this, you can go ahead and raise your hand again. If not,
I was going to share screen for a timer, but I'm having a technical issue. It's not allowing me to share my screen. I could also unmute Ron and give a verbal 30-second notice.
yes,
Or
I
unless
think
you
that
want
would
something
be
different, Wendy. Okay. I'm not sure
So
why it's not allowing me to share my screen.
sure. Ron, as you give your 2-minute public comment, just be aware that when you get close to the last 30 seconds, that Victor will come on and let you know that's the last 30 seconds. Ron, you are self-muted, so you're going to have to go ahead and unmute on your side.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand why this is, I guess we're not supposed to ask questions, but I'd like to know why this is before the commission. It seems like this really wonderful fellow just wants to change his windows. I'm trying to understand why it's a historical commission issue on a building that does not appear to be. And I've got it up front of great importance. My other comment is I think we should make it easy for this fine fellow to proceed with the repairs he'd like to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll answer that, but first we're going to take the rest of the public comments. Does anybody else want to speak about this?
All right. Any other members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand for a 2-minute comment period. All right, I'm going to do one last pass through. Mr. Chairman, I see no other hands raised. You can close the public.
Okay. That I close the public hearing portion of this case. We can take it up. And to answer Mr. Cavallo's question, we have to review the windows because it's part of, this isn't a local historic district. It's part of the rules. It's a window replacement. It's obviously when you're replacing replacement windows, it's, you know, there's a different discussion that goes on, but it still has to come before us.
And may I further clarify for anyone else who may have a similar question, but any property that's itself a local historic district or in a local historic district, any element that is within view of a public way or from the public way on the property, any alteration needs to be reviewed by the commission. Also, any hardscaping, not landscaping, but hardscaping, so changes in driveways, retaining walls, etc., also need to come before the commission. And so that's why we're reviewing this kind of case, is because it falls into that category, because the windows are certainly visible from the public way.
Thank you. This is, our regulations are online, aren't they, Wendy?
They are, yes.
If anyone has questions, that's always a good place to refer to and just check it out. In fact, we encourage anyone who's doing renovations in the district to just look before meeting with staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, if any member of the public would like us to send them the link to where they can find them online, they can go ahead and email historic@. somervillema.gov, and we'll go ahead and send them any information that they need.
Thank you.
And with that, we could take this up as a commission, and I just wanted to clarify. So this building currently has a number of existing wood replacement windows that the applicant wishes to replace with vinyl windows, and then there are existing vinyl windows that were previously approved in 2003, and those are to remain so that the new windows will match those. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay.
The same brand is the ones was replaced before is Harvey windows, and we're gonna use the same Harvey windows. Windows.
So, because obviously we don't normally, I mean, vinyl windows aren't normally something we go with, but I think we have to discuss this, but in that this is already an approved window and it's existing, I think the benefit of unifying the appearance is good that way, and obviously the wood windows seem to have failed you. I do like the idea of fixing up the window surrounds, the casings, and that will be very noticed from the street, so I'm in favor of that. What other people think about this?
Well, this is a historic home. It's an LHD, and when it was built, we didn't have plastic windows. We had wood windows, and in keeping with the character of the home, I believe that they should be replaced with replacement wood windows rather than plastic windows. I don't know whether the applicant has looked at restoration of the existing windows or not, but it looks like there's over 30 windows to be replaced. And I think this is an opportunity to bring this back to a historic status by installing either replacement wooden windows or restoring the existing wooden windows properly and replacing the plastic windows that were put in 203 with wood windows.
Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the wood windows that are to be replaced are replacement windows themselves. They are not original wood windows. They were replacement wood windows from some past era, but they are not the original wood windows of the house.
Do we know that for all of them?
90%. I'm sorry.
So 90% approximately are
Yes.
the
Being
replacement.
changed. Yes.
And a lot of those early wood replacement windows were completely unsatisfactory. Unlike modern wooden replacement windows.
So I agree with Mr. Bingham that, you know, under other circumstances, restoring the original wood windows would be preferable. And certainly if it were possible to do good quality wood replacement windows, that would be preferable. But where the commission approved the vinyl windows that are in place now, 19 years ago or whenever it was, I agree with Chair Parks that simply unifying the window style throughout will be of benefit, and certainly sort of reining in all the different trim styles and having the trim for the windows look appropriate will be of great benefit to the property and would be a good project.
Yeah, it looks like quite a few of the pieces of trim are not appropriate at all. And several of the windows don't have proper casings.
I think I need some help in understanding just what's being proposed and exactly what is there now. So the proposal is to do all of the windows in the building?
If I may, Chairman, so 8 windows had previously been approved for replacement. Let me start at the beginning. All windows were at one point replaced with wood windows, and then 8 of those replaced with vinyl by a previous homeowner, which was approved by the Historic Preservation Commission. The applicant is now coming in to replace the remainder of the replacement wood windows, to replace them with vinyl so that they'll match the 8 other windows that had previously been replaced. And then various trims on the building are different. And so what they would like to do is unify the trims back to the original historic trims.
Where are the 8 windows that were approved? And do we know anything about how that decision was made to approve them?
I was able to find the original approval from 2003. I did not read further on that. I can try to look that up really quickly right now if you would like. But it was in 2003 if I remember correctly. And then I believe the 8 windows are on the rear, but the applicant can correct me if I am wrong.
Dick, on page 5 of the documentation, it looks like there's one of the vinyl windows as a replacement on one of the bay windows. I can't determine whether it's multiple windows there, but I can see one which is on the left-hand side as you look out of the bay. It appears to be a vinyl window.
Can the applicant fill us in? Are they still?
Yes.
Yes.
The windows are in the first floor, in the driveway side, and also in the second floor and in the third floor. In the 3 floors, there is the vinyl windows.
On the driveway side?
Yeah, in the driveway side, and also, you know, in the kitchen, when they redid the kitchen, they pull permit for do the kitchen. In the kitchen, they also have a vinyl windows.
Okay. And are those the brown window, or what color are those windows?
White.
White.
Yes.
Oh, I see. That's what's in the bay window there. I mean, I very much agree with. I'd be torn that this would be a great opportunity to upgrade your whole window package to something that looks a little more historically accurate. In that the replacement windows that we've already approved are quite visible from the street. It's not a matter of the replacements being the back where no one can see it. So you will, even if you replace the old wood windows, the old replacement wood windows with new wood, you will still have that inconsistency. So I personally feel like I need to defer to the uniformity of our previous choice, or permission to put those vinyl windows, as much as I loathe them. However, I very much see your point, Mr. Bingham, and curious if people have any other thoughts now that we know where those windows are.
I'm looking in Google Street View, and from what I can see visible from the street, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, just why I want some guidance, I'm not seeing white vinyl windows. All of the windows that I can see from the street, I think, have brown storms on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some storm windows. You know, that's why you cannot really see the windows behind. But they are, everything is very poor condition. The windows doesn't even tie to the house, you know, because everything is rotted out around. And like I said before, you know, we even get snow through those storm windows. We're getting snow inside the house. We have damage inside the house, and it's really deteriorated for the windows.
Wanted to ask staff, so on the report in the top right on page 5 of the report, it shows some kind of bay and it's marked detail of replacement window trim. And I'm wondering where on the building that window is.
That is on the right elevation, towards the very rear. If you look on Street View, you can sort of see it. So you have the bays on the right elevation, about three or four windows down, I believe. And then there's this one little bay that sits behind it, which is barely visible from the street, though.
Because of vegetation, but not because it's actually
Correct. Just for looking at it from Street View right now, it's hard to see from the angle just because there's a bush in the way. But yeah, you could see it if you were able to freely walk down the street.
Yeah.
So
I'm asking questions about the location because if the commission had previously approved these windows in the front and we were talking about making them uniform, that would be one thing. But if we approve them essentially only in the back where they are either can't be seen from the street or virtually can't be seen from the street, then I think I would feel differently about allowing the ones in the front of the building to be done in vinyl in order to make them uniform, because that will then determine the appearance of the house from the street.
So just to recap the applicant, there are 8 windows that are currently vinyl, and they are on the driveway side. I see more than 8 windows on the driveway side.
Yeah, in the driveway side and also in the other side. In both sides of the house, they have a vinyl windows. The one was approved before.
That would be more than 8 windows then, because I see 10 on the right side alone.
Yeah, but it's not all of them in one side, you know, it's in different places, in both sides. It's not just in one side, you know, it's, I don't know, they replace one and then another one, the previous owner, and they don't really make it to match anything in the exterior. One, they don't put the trims, and I just try to make the house looks good and to be efficient for the winter and the summer, you know. I just.
So the vinyl windows, because Mr. Bauer's comment is good. Sometimes we, in the past, have allowed a vinyl window or something lesser in our guidelines in cases where it's on a secondary facade or further away. I can think of a few projects where this is the case, with the understanding that the front and the more prominent parts of the house are and remain wood. And so it kind of matters if we're allowing a decision that was made in the past to allow a vinyl window because it was way far away from the street. I feel like we should also be respecting that condition that was there. It sounds like that the vinyl windows, those being the white ones in these pictures, are in the very back bay on the right side. And then there's some.
Can I say something?
Yes, sure.
You know, the previous owner, the last year, you guys, the historical commission approved to replace the windows, but they don't want to do any repair in the trims or anything like that, just replace the windows itself. And that was approved already and expired in January of this year.
To replace the windows.
Exactly. You guys, this was approved the last February 2021. Was approved to replace all the windows already and was no wood windows. But now I'm the new owner and I want to do the windows and the trims.
So the previous approval was for a wood window?
Inside was wood and the exterior was no wood.
Ms. Checkowicz, do we have any knowledge of that previous approval that you have access to right now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do. because Sarah White is here, though. She was the planner who issued that, so I'm going to defer to her.
Thanks. Yes, that was issued last year with wood interior and I think, and Mr. Is it Giron or is it Giron?
Yes, Giron.
Giron.
Yeah.
Is it, remind me, does that certificate say that it's aluminum exterior or fiberglass exterior? But wood inside?
Yes, was a wood inside and the exterior I think was fiberglass.
Yeah.
But they was just for replace the window. And what I wanna do is do the whole trim because doesn't worth it just to replace the window and leave everything rotted out with no trim in the exterior. That's why I don't apply with those permit was already issued the last year with the previous owner, and I just follow to to new application to do everything the right way because it's really deteriorate.
So if Mr. Chair, if I could through you ask a question. So Mr. Giron, is the intent to essentially install the same windows that were in that certificate that was issued last year? And then in addition, you want to fix the trim? Do you want the windows, you want the type of windows that you're using to be different than what was in that certificate?
And was different in color? Yes, was a different color. The other one was painted, I think, black. And this one is gonna be white because what they told me, they can paint it, but when the paint start peeling and doesn't look, the type of the window. But the trim is gonna be covered all the frame of the window and the exterior, and it's gonna paint it to match all the trim. That's my intention to do, repair the whole trim and paint it.
Right. So is the so the windows that you want to do now are all vinyl on the inside and the outside? Yes. I see. So that is different. The reason I was asking that question is because it's been a while, obviously, since I worked on it. But two, if Mr. Giron, if you wanted to go forward with the approved windows from that certificate from last year, that certificate could be reissued and renewed. And then you could just get permission from the commission to repair and replace the trim. But if that's not the case, and now you're changing the entire type of window to vinyl, then it's a different story.
It's the same brand of windows. Everything was the same. The only thing, the other one was painted. The one was approved and was not trim involved. And it's not really sense to change the window and leave everything rotted out around the window. That's why basically I say this is no good because I want to keep getting water, snow inside, and it's not sealed properly because nothing to hold the window.
Right. I guess I do just want to clarify that the difference is that the windows that you want to put in now do not have wood on the inside. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. It's on the inside.
Okay. So if they're not, so then it sounds like that it is a totally different window. So.
Yes, the inside is different. Yes.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And the reason I jumped on in response to one of the commissioner's questions was just to give a little background on that. I think it was a staff level approval, wasn't it, Wendy, last year? Because those windows, those were the types of windows that were already in the house as replacement windows. So in-kind replacement windows could be done. But since he is proposing an entirely different material, not for the inside so much as the outside, then hence it's back before you again. So thank you, Mr. Giron, for clearing that up. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Your time.
So I'm sorry, I now have a clarifying question. The windows that were approved and installed in 2003, those conform with the vinyl windows that Mr. Giron is wanting to do, or they conform with what was approved a year ago?
Wendy, I'm not familiar with the I don't remember that far back.
From what I've been able to find, it does conform with the vinyl windows.
Okay.
And the windows that were more recently approved are a wood with a clad window.
That's right.
With
Yes.
a fiberglass cladding, not a plastic cladding.
Right.
Right. To replace replacement windows.
Right.
But those were just not, that approval from last year was not executed, and it was a different, it was the prior owner.
Right.
Exactly. That's why I fill up an application in my name, because I'm the new owner and I want to do the trim at the same time I do the window, because it's no,
Right, it doesn't make sense to do one without the other.
exactly, yes.
And may I ask another question? The storm windows that are on the property now, will those be removed once the windows have been replaced?
Yeah, those windows are no good. Some are missing the glass. The other ones are no attached anymore. And they are really doesn't do the work for a storm window anymore. Like I say, we're getting water and snow inside the house, even with these storm windows.
Okay.
Because they don't really, this new window doesn't need the storm window anymore.
Okay.
So they are double glass. Mhm.
And so the view that we will have of the windows from the public way won't be obscured by the storm windows. We will be able to see more clearly the windows themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, so this changes things in my mind. I would much rather see the clad wood windows used. I understand that the windows at the back in the kitchen bay and also on the left towards the rear are different, but it seems like they're less prominent positioning. It seems less worse to me to not have uniformity to get the wood clad or clad wood. Oy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a little bit more, I feel like the vinyl windows that are there now are in the very back, and there were the window that was approved last. I don't have a product for it, but the more recent one likely was a clad window that might have made a better effort to be, Muntin profiles, things like that. I don't even see that the windows that are proposed would be divided. So I'm feeling like, while I applaud the trim work, I feel like the window units, maybe we ought to encourage the applicant to go with the one that was more recently approved there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be great to see true divide, 2/2s and, in the.
Yeah, or simulated divided lights, the ones that are, it can be one glass, but with a simulated Muntin that looks realistic.
Yeah.
Up on, because I'm looking at the pictures, they're basically 2/2 in a lot of places. Except for they.
This house is very similar to mine, which has all its original windows, and the larger windows are 2/2. The little skinny ones in the bay are just 1/1. How about you, Mr. Bingham and Mr. Bauer? Do you have any more thoughts now that we've heard more about this?
No, I just think it's important to, if you look at the house from the street, it's a beautiful house. It's got a lot of integrity still in it. It's got a lot of the detail work still there. I think to put plastic windows in its place that and non-historic would be doing a disservice to the house, frankly. And I agree with fixing the trim, but I really think that the windows are. We went with the wooden fiberglass ones for a reason. The fiberglass doesn't warp the way the plastic does, is going to have much better longevity, and it's going to look more consistent with the historic facade. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to clarify, the commission would like to see replacement windows be wood clad with either vinyl or aluminum with 2/2 mutton pattern, correct?
2/2. Sorry?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass.
Okay, fiberglass clad. Okay,
Fiberglass is different to vinyl. Vinyl's plastic, fiberglass isn't.
perfect. All right, just wanted to make sure we had that.
Since the existing windows are replacements, we don't need to be super didactic about them going back to all wood windows, but I think that we need to up the quality level of what goes there beyond just basic vinyl. Yeah. And as for the trim, yeah, that all the repairs, the trim work and the unification that way, I'm totally on board with that. So how, but we can do a variety of things. Obviously, it's up to a vote, but it sounded like there's a consensus forming that the window product ought to be revisited. We could continue that and let the applicant come back with an alternate thing and approve we could break it apart so we have the trim work and then the windows, or we could just continue the whole thing to next month.
But can I say something?
Sure, please.
You know, and I've been waiting for this meeting for 3 months, and that's okay. You approve the trim, because I don't want the house, if you can see it close to the house, everything is falling, you know. And if I leave it the way it is, it could be historical, but how good could be if it's historical, if everything is falling down, looking really worse from the street? I just want to make it look good. I want to paint it. I have the intention to. I've been in Somerville for 20-something years, and I buy this house, and I want to make it to look good, you know. And I just want to help me to approve, because like I say, I've been waiting for this meeting. I get water inside, I get mold inside, because for the water getting inside, and I really need to, you know, if you can approve, replace the trim, and if I had to go with the previous windows, you guys approve it. You know,
we are trying to resolve that for you tonight, sir, with all due respect. That you applied for this at a certain stage is up to you. But it's here tonight for us to look at and give you direction on this. So we are actually acting on this, so we can hope we can get it sorted for you pretty quickly. The other question I had on this is in the specifications you had for these windows, they were down as low E glass, which is a reflective glass, which is a glass that we don't approve as well. So I think that's another problem that has come up with the windows.
Mr. Chairman, if I
tonight, if we can.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may just interrupt. You can, if you are comfortable doing this, you could make a motion that you approve windows with the condition that the windows are wood with fiberglass cladding, 2/2 mutton pattern, and that the applicant will work with staff for the window selection, so that they have to receive our approval on the proposed final windows that go in.
And also that they can't be low E reflective glass.
Sure.
Yes.
And that could potentially be as simple as reviving the previously approved windows, which I feel like I was around for that hearing. That would be fine, that would be acceptable to me.
Right. And also, if I just may, for low E windows, they now make ones that don't have a coating. It's built into the glass, and it doesn't have a tinted appearance. It's as almost perfectly as clear as normal glass. So it's not a tint anymore or film. It's actually built into the glass.
Yeah, I have to say I've been fooled a few times now. They've upped their game with the low E thing. We might need to revisit that.
So would it be sufficient if we just said without a low E coating? Would that be clear that we don't want the coating, but we're not opposed to low E if it's built into the glass?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So unless there's more discussion, I'd be happy to entertain a motion as described by Ms. Chekowicz.
Well, I will make that motion that we approve the application. Actually, before we do that, do we have any more questions about the trim and the materials for the trim, or are we satisfied? We've mostly been talking about the windows themselves.
The only other
I
question
want to see the trim get done.
that I had, Mr. Bauer, was the confirmation of the windows. I think in the bays that look at 1/1, but on the side, are we looking at 1/1s or are we looking at 2/2s?
2/2s.
2/2s?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would almost say we should just match the divisions as they exist.
And we are satisfied with the proposal for the trim.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
That
In
makes
that
a lot
case,
of sense.
let me make the motion to approve the application on the condition that the windows be wood windows, 2/2, that fiberglass cladding would be acceptable, as would simulated divided lights. Do we need to specify the nature of the simulated divided lights?
With the spacer bar between the pieces of glass, panes of glass.
And low E coating is not acceptable, but low E built into the glass would be acceptable. Does that cover all the points?
And that the trim will be replaced to match the historic original trim, including the little hood designs around the first floor windows.
If, Mr. Chairman, if I may just jump in very quickly. The grids, the mutton grids must be on the window glass, not between it.
Well, but yeah, on and between. It's the simulated look that I think all the window manufacturers do this now. I believe they do. It's a grid that matches a 7/8 inch profile with the little dark spacer bar between it and that. So it looks pretty much like there's a true divided light there. It's not a
I
true.
want to ask Mr. Duran if this would be acceptable to you, sir?
Yes, thank you very much for taking the time to deal with this. And just a quick question, they make in a fiberglass and also is aluminum is the two choices. The one, I just want to make sure either one is good because to don't come for a meeting again because it's wherever we can find it, I want to, like I say, I want to make the house looks the best it can because I like the house and that's why we get it from my family and we want to make it looks good. But if it's no, those materials you say could be aluminum or.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Duran. That would be acceptable to me. So let me amend that to say wood and that either aluminum or fiberglass cladding would be acceptable.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That works well. I like the aluminum as well.
Yep. I second that motion.
Okay.
Oh, can I say last question? Last question.
Yeah.
The windows, when you get it in the fiberglass or the aluminum, they come in with the trim. They are black or, they come with the color. That's already will be something like that.
Yes, and one advantage to the aluminum is you usually have a pretty wide variety of finish options in the aluminum, in my experience at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So we have a motion seconded, and I'll take all in favor of accepting that.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Do a roll call. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mr. Bingham?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So we have it. Thank you for coming tonight, Mr. Giron.
Thank you very much, and I see you in my next project because I'm gonna make the house looks good.
Good. Wonderful.
Okay, thanks.
Before we depart from alterations, I suppose I should check and see if that last alteration showed up again, the Campbell Park.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We were able to get a hold of the applicant. Let me check if they logged in.
They are here, Mr. Chairman and Wendy. Mike Tocatlian and Victor Del Porto are both here.
Okay.
Yes, Victor, can you unmute Mike Tocatlian and Victor Del Porto?
Mr. Chairman, may I just add one thing, please? For people who make public comment, we need to remind everybody that every time they make a comment for the first time, they need to give their name and their address as well. And I noticed some people had not been doing that. And for anybody who speaks on the applicant team, please identify yourselves each time, because if somebody is just listening to a recording, we need to know who's speaking. And I think somebody needs to mute themselves who just unmuted themselves.
Thank you.
Mike and Victor are muted. Victor, you are still self-muted.
Hello, this is Victor.
Hi.
Hi there. So tell us quickly about your project.
So we're at 15 Campbell Park, and we want to replace our asphalt driveway with some pavers that match the sidewalk brick and the brick that's used in the apron of the driveway.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who...
Mike, just when you're not speaking, if you could please mute yourself. I think it's either you or Victor who has some feedback issues.
Okay, you want me to mute it? Okay, 1 second. I'm on my mobile device. I don't see where it allows me to mute myself.
Oh, okay. You figured it out. All right. Mr. Chairman, did I hear correctly that you opened public comment?
Yes.
All right. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, you will have 2 minutes to make comments. Please raise your hand, the raise hand function, and we will unmute you for public comment. All right, Mr. Chairman, I haven't seen any hands up yet. I will do one last pass through. All right, Mr. Chairman, there are no hands raised. You can go ahead and close the public comment.
Thank you. I'll close the public comment portion of this case and talk about it as a commission. Who has thoughts about this?
If I may, Mr. Chairman. In looking at this, I think this is a commendable project to get rid of the asphalt and put down brick pavers, but the pavers that are shown are cement pavers, not clay pavers. The problem with the clay pavers is that they're really impacted in several ways, especially by salt in this environment, whereas the clay pavers are not. The new wire-cut clay pavers, they're found to be far better for adhesion qualities and anti-skid than the cement ones, the concrete ones that are illustrated. And I think we recently looked at the difference between these when we were looking at the roundhouse, when they were putting in their clay pavers. And it's because Somerville has a history of brick making, as does Cambridge. We made clay bricks. Clay bricks are the things that are historically appropriate, and these are the things that should go down, not these cement pavers that are shown.
Thank you. Who else has a thought on this?
Unless I'm missing it, I don't see information about the pattern that we used. I shared Dick's, I'm sorry, Alan's, Mr. Bingham's concerns about clay, being preferable to cement. I'm just wondering.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the pattern will match the current apron portion of the driveway that is there.
So it would be a running bond instead of a herringbone type pattern.
Correct.
And it would,
I'm sorry.
and it would run in the same direction as the walkway to its left and the sidewalk.
That is correct. This is Mike Tocatli, the developer.
Thank you.
I'm a little confused. So we're talking about matching the apron. Is the apron just the sidewalk?
So
Mr. Chairman, if I may, yes, it's that portion. There's a picture of it that you can see. The apron is essentially right where the sidewalk transitions to get onto the driveway.
But that is on their property, it's not the public way. Because that does look like a brick paver there.
Yeah, they are brick pavers that are on the sidewalk.
So by matching that, it would be brick that matches that. So that, I mean,
Clay brick. A clay brick.
Okay.
As a point, I think it was in January, or it might have been December, when there was a presentation given to the city on different types of sidewalk materials and the benefits of them. And the decision, this was part of the decision on the old city pavers, city hall pavers that the city had used in various areas, which are probably what we're seeing on the sidewalk here. And the new developments in brick, which has come about to get the uniformity and the color right. The new wire cut brick, clay bricks, have a uniform size and shape, allowing them to sit more tightly together so that they don't dislodge as easily and they don't fall out. And this was based on the work that was done by Boston City and also for the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints, where they did 11 acres of paving in the new wire cut clay bricks to match this. And they've found it to be even better handicap accessibility and than concrete or even asphalt. They've come up to be the preferred selection. And so we can match the color and we can get a better uniformity and longevity, and it's not affected by salt.
Walkways, interesting.
It's compatible in price, so it's almost a no-brainer.
These would be pervious pavers, is that correct? Which have a slightly different design to allow water to get permeable pavers.
Yeah.
Yes. We were told by the city that we needed to have permeable pavers.
With built-in gaps that, okay. So yeah, just a big picture, changing the asphalt with pavers, it's kind of a no-brainer. That's an improvement. Matching the running bond, I'm okay with that. And Alan's comment about using clay versus concrete, I think makes good sense. Bill's not weighed in yet. If not, yes.
I'm sorry, I guess I just need to understand how to square the city's requirement for permeable pavers and Historic's preference for clay. Are there clay bricks that offer similar shape to be permeable?
Yeah, the permeability comes through the spacing in between them because they're actually fired in a kiln. And the city was looking at this because this is a function of replacement of the bricks in Davis Square and other areas as to what bricks they were going to use and what foundation they were going to sit upon.
Right. So you know, the pavers that they apparently already have on site, the concrete or cement pavers or whatever they are.
Well, we don't know that they're on site.
The photo shows us that they are stacked.
Yeah, we purchased these a long time ago.
Sorry. I didn't hear that. What was something was this?
Sorry, I mentioned that these pavers are on site and they were purchased a long time ago.
This is, of course, why it's always important for applicants to come and confer with the commission as an advisory body before actually purchasing things. We see this at times with windows and doors as well, and with roofing materials.
Yeah, this project was like the project in its entirety was passed by this advisory. I think that must have been January of 2021, and so it was only recently that we were told that we had to come back specifically for the driveway, even though the full gut renovation of the house has been completed.
I think as Vice Chair Kelly indicated earlier, that we do have purview over hardscape as well. But I'm sorry, you weren't here for that. I apologize.
Okay, so what I'm hearing people suggest is that we'd be okay with the clay. Less agreement with the concrete pavers. The clay pavers would be installed as pervious pavers with larger gaps. I don't know enough about that particular aspect to know if you have to have a particular kind of clay paver that has those little spacers built in, or if it's just a matter of locating it with with enough gaps and stone dust so that the water can filter through between the gaps. Sounds like, Alan, you've done that research.
Yeah, that's been done. Was presented to the city with senior members of planning department, including Mr. Proakis and the mayor.
Okay.
And these are similar pavers to what's in the driveway at the West Branch Library, which we're finding now that water gets down into and ice forms and tends to dislodge the pavers.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject, I believe sometime either May or June that this commission had approved brick pavers on Meacham.
Brick pavers.
Yes, okay. And I just want you to be aware.
When can we, and I apologize, can we clarify, we've been using the term brick pavers, and I think some people use those interchangeably between the clay and concrete. Ms. Chekowitz, when you're saying brick pavers on Meacham, do you mean concrete or clay?
Concrete.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we approved clay also on the Roundhouse for their driveway extensions. just late last year, if you'll recall as well.
Yes, Ms. Jekowicz is correct. We do have, in my memory, of certainly a lot of precedent for approving concrete pavers as well.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say we've never allowed that. You know, it's
True.
it's your point is certainly valid, though, Mr. Bingham, that clay would be a more historically correct look. I guess one question might be, does the nature of this particular application warrant, does it matter more or less in this particular setting, this driveway? You do have a lot of brick around it, brick sidewalk apparently. Didn't know we had any of those left in Somerville. It would not be inconsistent to approve concrete as well in this location.
And it would still be an improvement over the current asphalt. It's not as though a clay brick driveway were being torn up to be replaced with concrete pavers.
True.
That's a good point as well. So I think, I mean, in this particular situation, I think I would be okay with these concrete pavers because it's an upgrade over what's there. It's not my ideal. It's not what I would do if it were my house, but it's an improvement and it's not inconsistent with what we've been doing in some other cases. But
I agree with that conclusion.
okay.
I move that we vote to approve the concrete pavers as outlined in the report.
I second that.
Okay, all approved? Or all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's do a roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So there you have it. Thank you for coming to us. And,
Thank you.
With that, let's move on to the determinations of historic significance. And the first case we have is HPC.DMO 2022.04 9 Taylor Street. The applicant is 9 Taylor Street LLC. Owner is the same as the applicant. Proposal to demolish a principal structure. Do we have someone here from the applicant?
Anyone from the applicant team, please raise your hand to be unmuted. And Mr. Chairman, if I can just interject really quickly and just remind the commission that you have 6 items left on the agenda and it is 8:30 p.m.
So we'll pick it up. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, staff, Ann Vigorito on behalf of 9 and 15 Taylor Street. They are the next 2 items. They are also the same applicant. So I will start with 9 or 15, whatever the pleasure of the board is. But I am joined also this evening by Garrett Ennis. He is the applicant, as well as Evan Selman. He is our architect. So he is available as well. And I have read through the staff reports for both properties. 9 Taylor, there has been extensive, and when I say extensive alterations, the prior owner of this property used it for rental for many, many years. He was somewhat of an absentee landlord. And like I said, I know staff says it does maintain most of its original form, but you know, replacement windows, second floor space, you know, enclosure extensions, all types of, you know, things that don't match. Like I said, this was used as a rental property for quite a bit of time. And I think I could be, 15 Taylor, I think there was talk of a garage, but that garage has long been gone. I think it may have been from a satellite photo of some sort. But our contention is that there really is no historical significance on 9 Taylor Street. And if there's any questions from members of the board, as I stated, Evan Stillman, our architect, is also here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there members of the public who'd like to speak?
Any members of the public who would like to speak on this item, you'll be given 2 minutes to give your public comment. Please raise your hand if you would like to give comment. And I'm going to assume your hand is raised from being part of the applicant team. All right. Victor, if you could unmute Ron Cavallo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm looking at 9 Taylor. And if this building is considered significant, then I have to say that I feel that this board, this commission is overreaching and holding back progress in the city and losing the opportunity to bring into the city into the 21st century with a more modern, contemporary, efficient structure. This thing is ugly. It's been altered. It never had any historical or architectural significance. It's ugly. This is a building that is best lost with the city benefiting from losing it. And this purist idea that I hear all too often is unrealistic. And frankly, it upsets me. That's the last of my comments.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of the public who want to speak?
Mr. Chairman, really quickly, Ron, can you give your address?
Yes, certainly. It's Ronald Cavallo. Thank you. I was remiss. Ronald Cavallo. I reside at 70 Victoria Street, Somerville. I'm a long-term resident and a significant property owner in the city.
Thank you. All right, any other members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand. All right. All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't see anyone yet. I'm just going to go through one more time. All right, there are no other members of the public who have their hands raised. You may close the public comment.
Okay, I will close the public comment portion of this case. And I think Ms. Chekowicz, do you have anything you want to just sort of note, any highlights from your staff report on this case?
Sure. So 9 Taylor Street, I think it's important to know, is a 2.3-story residential structure. It doesn't actually have a half floor on the top. The roof is a very shallow hip roof, and it has a small dormer which provides light into a crawl space. And that doesn't equal a half story. It appears that the property was built in around 1913, 1914, as 1914 is when we have our first record of anyone living at the property. We didn't find many substantial records on anyone who lived there. It was a working family house, and the only real records we found, substantial records, were for the Baldwin family who lived there, who had 2 children who served during World War II. Otherwise, there has been quite a few alterations to it. There were enclosures of the porch on the second floor, on the front facade, the enclosure and extension of the side porch, which sort of created a lean-to. There are replacement windows, replacement doors, vinyl siding, and that lean-to that has been created on the side has a mixture of different sidings, from wood paneling to vinyl siding.
Thank you. Okay, and then to open up for our commission. Thoughts?
So I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm seeing the same pictures for 9 as for 15 Taylor Street on the documents that we have. And yet when I look at the street view online, they're totally different houses.
The reports I have different photos.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the maps are all the same almost, just identifying different lots, but the actual pictures for the properties should be different.
I see. I wonder if there were multiple. I'm looking at. I feel like I'm seeing what Alan is seeing here. 9 Taylor Street. Has this number 9 Taylor Street. I go to Street View. Oh, I see. That they've changed the siding. It's the Street View.
Okay.
It's formerly a brown house. Yeah.
Yes, I also realized that as I was looking at them. They look very similar right now in the reports, but on the Street View are different in color.
Well, my initial thoughts, if I just launch into it, is I don't see that this house carries. I'm speaking just at 9, even though they're most houses. It doesn't really. It's not part of a continuous grouping of that sort of house. It has been highly modified. I think the only thing that I would say that gives it character is the heavy eave line, which once upon a time would have had more going on there, and that little dormer window, the roof line. Otherwise, it's a fairly typical house that has been modified quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree that it's not, it's not contributing much to the streetscape. These two are, similar, and there are, a couple on Sydney that are 2-story, but, on Taylor itself, there's quite a variety of building structures, and this is so heavily modified and not in particularly helpful ways. This poor thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't see much integrity or merit for this as a significant structure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to buy in on that, I agree with the applicant or the public comment that it's ugly. I think it is ugly. It's been made ugly. It probably wasn't at one time, but it is now.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to contribute anything in the way of architectural merit. And I also noticed that there's in the research, it has nothing to do with association of anybody of any note culturally within the city itself that would warrant that from a perspective according to the guidelines and under which we work.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have a thought on that? This is just you, Mr. Bauer.
Although the two houses look fairly similar from the street because of the ugly enclosed porches that are on them, they're actually quite different from each other.
Yeah.
Which to me, I think pushes me away from preservation. The house at number 9 has an interesting and intact roof and roof line, and if both houses were like that, and one could imagine with the porches stripped off, there actually would be an interesting bit of streetscape there. But in addition to the porches, the two houses are actually quite different, and neither one really seems to support the other one very well.
Right.
That, I think, pushes me in the direction then of not significant.
Okay. Well, I think we've all had a chance to weigh in. Should we just go to a vote? And this would be a vote on significance for 9 Taylor Street. If there's someone who would like to move that.
I move that we vote, I move that we vote to find 9 Taylor Street significant. A yes vote would be that it is significant. A no vote would be that it is not significant.
Thank you.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor? Say aye. All opposed? No.
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 And let's do a roll call. Mr. Bauer?
No.
Mr. Bingham?
No.
Vice Chair Kelly?
No.
And I vote no as well. And we need to adopt findings on that vote. And I would just propose that it's pretty straightforward. Doesn't, let me pull up that section of our staff report. Sorry. It lacks an association with the broad cultural, sorry, I just lost my page here. The broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the city. And also it does not have any historical architectural significance. Section B. Am I capturing that one? Yeah.
Would just add that this house does not support number 15 in terms of streetscape or vice versa.
Okay.
Yeah, I think noting that it's heavily modified and, as Mr. Bauer said, does not contribute to the streetscape.
Okay.
Be the most notable issues.
Good. Can we have a motion to advance those findings?
I'll move that.
Okay, I'll second it. I guess I can do that.
Okay.
All in favor of adopting those findings? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mr. Bingham?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that is 9. I mean, we sort of touched on 15, but let's maybe officially open cases. This is for HPC DMO 2022.05, 15 Taylor Street. Applicant is Taylor Mystic LLC. I assume that's 9 Taylor. I don't know. That's what we say here. Taylor Mystic LLC. Owner same as applicant. And I believe our applicant is still online here.
Yes, good evening. It's Attorney Ann Vigorito. I'm joined by the applicant Garrett Innes from the LLC, as well as the architect Evan Stellman regarding 15 Taylor. And as I think members of the board put in a very eloquent manner, there's not a lot of, this is a very similar building. I think someone may have called the other one ugly. I find this one unattractive myself. But once again, the alterations to these houses, they were used, and they still are used, or they were used up until I think their vacancies as rental properties. So they were not kept up in a manner of, you know, maybe properties that were owner occupied. But I think this one's similar to 9 Taylor, has much of the many alterations that have clouded, you know, maybe its previous architectural integrity. That's all I have at this time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about this case?
Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand and we will go ahead and unmute you. As a reminder, you have 2 minutes to talk on this item. Mr. Chair, I'm looking for any raised hands. All right. Victor, can you, actually, you might, yes. Victor, can you unmute Ron Cavallo?
Is that muted?
Ron Cavallo, 70 Victoria Street, Somerville, Mass. Long-term resident and major property owner in the city. I look at this and I see this as another marginal property of absolutely no historical merit, no architectural merit. And I express great concern about this commission holding back the city from progressing into the 21st century. This is a structure that's unattractive, ugly, obsolete, and the city and the streetscape would benefit greatly from it being replaced with something nice. And if I have a further comment, it's that it would be important to me that something nice go there. What is here is ugly. And I'm very cost conscious, and I'm very aware of revenue, the need for revenue in this city. There's an extensive need for capital improvement. There's $23 million in the till that can disappear overnight. We need revenue. We need these obsolete, ugly structures to go. I'm also going to express concern about this commission overreaching. I've seen it before, and I think to not allow this building to come down is overreaching. There's nothing here of merit to the streetscape or to the city. End of comment.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak?
All right, any other members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand and we can go ahead and unmute you. All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to do one more pass through. All right, Mr. Chairman, no one from the public has raised their hand. You may go ahead and close the public comment.
Okay. I'll close the public comment portion of this case. And again, with this, if you could give us a quick synopsis of this structure, Dr. Wood.
Yes, I can. 15 Taylor Street is a 2.5-story structure located in the 10 Hills neighborhood. Like 9 Taylor, they were both built around similar time. So our earliest record of residence at the site is 1913. So the date of construction is likely 1912, 1913. Other than that, we were not able to discover substantive further information on the residents who lived there, but it did have, from what we can tell from U.S. City, from Somerville City directories, is that it was once again workers' housing. Alterations to the building include replacement windows and doors. There's been the installation of a shed dormer on the left elevation, the addition above the front covered porch, the enclosure of the rear porch, and a second-story addition above the rear porch with the roof deck, and also in the rear there's a small attached shed.
Okay. Thank you. Let's take this up as a commission then. First thoughts, second thoughts.
Well, I see this property as being a little bit less ragtag in appearance than 9 Taylor. It's still has been, terribly stripped and altered from its original condition and doesn't contribute much to the streetscape. So it's hard to find much reason to indicate that it's significant.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I tend to agree with Vice Chair Kelly. This is one of those places that's been significantly modified and changed. And while the massing remains somewhat consistent with what it once was, it adds nothing to the historic fabric of the city. I would like to just add that the comments from the public about the commission overreaching, we try to work within the guidelines that are set down by the Secretary of the Interior and the National Park Service, which is why when we actually find something significant or not, we have findings, and those findings reflect the decisions that we make, which are based on the recommendations and the guidelines that we work within. So we don't overreach. What we do is we stay within guidelines. And while we don't have no intention of putting the city into a time warp, as it were, what we're interested in is preserving what is valuable to be preserved according to the guidelines that we have. So I'd just like to make that comment because the commissioners work hard to try and investigate these properties and make sure that we make good decisions and that we can substantiate those decisions. And we'd like to really hear that the public appreciate the efforts that go into this. So that's just my final comment. But I don't see that this particular structure, like the one next door, neither 15 nor 9, have very much significance to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham. I guess I would weigh in. I agree. I think new windows, new siding at the front porch, there's not much character here, and it's, while the original form or the original massing could be perceived, I think that massing doesn't speak to something that's distinct enough or unique enough to really warrant calling that out. It's also not part of a pattern or a repetitive, a consistent appearance on that side of the house, of the street. So I would concur. I don't think this structure warrants a determination of significance. Anybody else?
I move that we vote to find the property historically significant. Yes vote, it would be that it is significant. A no vote, that it is not, regarding 15 Taylor.
Thank you.
I second that.
Seconded by Mr. Bauer. All in favor? All opposed? No.
Nay.
A roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Nay.
Mr. Bingham,
Nay.
Vice Chair Kelly,
No.
and I vote no as well. And for findings, as with 9 Taylor Street, I would suggest that this does not contribute to the historic streetscape. It doesn't retain enough of original character to lost too much of its original fabric, and it's not historically significant.
And I think also you meant to that there are no architectural features of historic nature remaining.
Okay, good.
I vote that we adopt those findings as just described.
Second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So there you have it. Thanks for coming in tonight. And we are now moving on to the determinations of preferably preserved status. We have 4 cases here. And the first one is HPC DMO 2021.29, 722 Broadway. Applicant is D. Camillo Associates LLC. Owner is same as applicant. The proposal is to demolish principal structure. And do we have an applicant here?
Yes, we do. I believe it is Anne again. Anne, if you would like to unmute yourself.
Yes, good evening once again, Ann Vigorito. This is my last case for the evening. I am joined by the team, Joe Federa from D. Camillo Associates, as well as our architect, Christopher Vant. At your last meeting, as you know, you did find that this was historically significant, and I know we are at the preferably preserved stage. I mean, I would reiterate and re-adopt, what was asserted from our team at the last meeting. And since that time, the applicant and the architect had consulted with Dan Bernardi Consulting Engineers. They did put together a report, which I did forward to staff for
HP this evening. And I'd say based on their findings, you know, they don't say the building should be demolished, but they did not find it in the best of structural soundings. So to me, that would give a strong point of not recommending preferably preserved for this property. You know, and that to me is would be my issue with preferably preserved. I do feel that, you know, the findings of the structural engineer's report, I feel like I can quote directly from it. There's mortar deterioration due to moisture penetration. Spalled bricks would also need to be replaced. Moisture ingress can be mitigated by installing permanent pipes. The cracked mortar joints and the exterior face of the foundations walls would need to be repointed, which is extensive work. The stone piers supporting the exterior porch are out of plumb. The piers should be rebuilt with new footings below the front line. At this time, I would ask that our architect, Christopher Vance, he can speak a little bit more in detail and professional detail as well regarding the report and some of his concerns. So I believe he's unmuted. I will mute myself, and if Christopher could speak, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Christopher Vance of Vance Architects. I believe you guys have all received a copy of Dan Bernardi's report, but he did do a site visit on March 8th and looked at the structural integrity of the structure. And as Anne mentioned, he did have some findings showing that, you know, the structure has shown some settling and deterioration over time. And he presented his remedies for those. And again, you know, depending on the severity of that deterioration, it will, you know, determine the outcome of future settling and deterioration of the brick and the piers. Which, you know, as we can find, a lot of the structure has been wrapped in vinyl, which sometimes does exacerbate those problems because water can actually get trapped behind the vinyl and not have anywhere to dry. So as we can see, it's starting to impact the structure. So, you know, for that reason, we do feel that the structure should not be preferably preserved.
Thank you. Okay. Let's then move on to the public comment portion of this hearing. Are there members of the public who'd like to speak about this case?
Any members of the public wishing to speak on this case, please raise your hand and you'll be given 2 minutes to speak on this item. Victor, if you can unmute Francis Farley.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Francis Farley. I live at 272 Willow Avenue. I don't know who else to ask these kind of questions for. I've had not a lot of help from people in the city when other things like this have come up, but they're talking about demolishing the building that's right next door to us. Can you tell me something about the timetable of the demolition and of the construction that will happen after that? And how close are they allowed to build next to our house? What rights do we have? And what happens if the shock and vibration of the demolition project or the construction project damages our house? And how do members of the public like me find out what's going to be built next to my house? Who do I ask these questions of? How do I find out? Could you please address those things for me, please? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I guess I would ask if staff wants to, before we take the next comment, want to address those before we move on to somebody else's comment.
Sure. Mr. Farley, well, I understand your frustrations and concerns. Unfortunately, we can't address those questions here right now. This is only for public comment on the demolition of 722 Broadway. However, where you can email those sort of questions to is if you would like to email planning@, somervillema.gov. We can go ahead and respond to you from there, or if it's easier to send that email to historic@somervillema.gov, we can always send you to our colleagues in planning who can answer those questions for you.
And someone will actually get back to me and give me answers? Really?
Yes.
That's not been my experience on other things related to what's going on in this neighborhood recently. I'm really scared about this.
I am very sorry that has not been your response, that your experience with it. However, we don't have the answers you need right now. I can't give you a timetable on that. I don't know this. I don't have the zoning codes memorized, and this is really just a meeting for historic preservation questions. So even if I wanted to answer the questions right now, I really just don't have the information to even answer them here. So I really recommend you email planning at.
Yes, I understand the problem with this, if I may. And what I've done in the past is I've also copied the ward alderman or councillor on that, and also the mayor. That tends to get the attention of staff a little bit more promptly, I have found in my experience, just as a tip.
Okay.
All right.
All I can tell you is that this is strictly a hearing for demolition. If we vote it preferably preserved, it starts an 18-month delay period during which we can have discussions about options for preserving it, or if it's determined it's not going to get preserved, we often come to a consensus for that about what sort of thing might replace it and to what extent it might honor the previous structure. So that's really our purview tonight. And a lot of the other questions that they mentioned are really for other sections of planning and zoning. Are there questions? Sorry.
If I can interrupt, to be clear, this evening we are only reviewing 722 Broadway. The Lindell's Bakery building is younger than 75 years and does not fall under review of the Historic Commission. So unfortunately, its demolition is up to its owner, not us.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in this case?
Any other members of the public wishing to speak, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted for a 2-minute public comment.
Hello?
Hello, who is speaking?
It's Ron Cavallo again.
Hi, Ron.
Hi.
Go ahead and you can make your public comment.
Sure. Well, I acknowledge Mr. Bingham's comment, and I am in complete disagreement with him. But I want to discuss the issue at hand, which is this property. I heard Mr. Farley's comment, and they seem very sincere and justified in the sense that he certainly has a right to know what is going to happen to his building, his house, and he needs to protect it. When I look at this property, I see it as one of many generic sort of quasi gable end, gambrel, I don't know what it is, 2-family that's been heavily modified. And I struggle to find the architectural significance of this structure. Now, I will tell you that I am pro-development in this city, and I am pro-moving the city into the 21st century. Structures that I consider to be unattractive and obsolete, I believe are holding the city back from a more progressive group of buildings that could be built, that could be energy efficient, far more attractive, and bring us so much more revenue into the city. I consider this building generic, unattractive, heavily modified, and of absolutely zero architectural significance. And I think to consider this building as having any architectural significance is another example of overreaching, and I'm not happy. Now, I pay a pile of money in taxes in this city. Every single year, my assessments go up. Every single year, I have to apply for abatements. And I'm a significant property owner in this city. I care a whole lot about this city. I've been here for 21 years. I've made enormous improvements to this city. I've taken crack houses and turned them into condominium buildings. This is an example of another dumpy building with no architectural merit. And to find this as significant, I think is overreaching. And I don't like it at all.
Ron, your
End of
time has expired. If
End
you would
of
like to wrap up
comment.
your thought.
End of comment. I think it's clear.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak?
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item regarding the demolition of 722 Broadway, please raise your hand and you will be unmuted. All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't see any hands. I'm going to go through one last time. All right, there are no other members of the public with their hands raised. You can close the public comment.
Thank you. I close the public comment portion of this case. And would you like to give a quick synopsis of this from your staff report? I know we would have gone over this last month, but just to recap.
Yes, so the applicant is here for a determination of preferably preserved. They had previously been determined historically significant. As a reminder, the property is located in the Ball Square area and was part of a larger development between 1910 and 1930 in which near identical buildings were replicated on Willow Ave and Broadway. The alterations included the enclosure of the front porch arches, an addition of a bay on the right elevation, and the enclosure of the rear porch. And then finally, the rear of 720 Broadway connects to the rear of 722 Broadway.
Thank you. Okay, let's take this up as commissioned. First impressions?
Well, I will go. This structure seems to me to be a significant structure on the street. It is typical of a number of buildings in the neighborhood, although it has had some modifications, particularly the enclosure of the porch. The basic structure of the house is there. The basic fenestration of the building is there. And it is typical of the kinds of buildings that are in that neighborhood, and I think it ought to be preserved. We just add that I have not seen anything about it in terms of the structure and the structural report that gives me any pause. Everything that was in the structural report seems fairly minor, the kind of work that almost every house in Somerville probably could use if it hasn't already had it, but not anywhere enough to justify the demolition of it. Some of the structural work on warped floors and beams is the kind of work we've had to do in our house. And there's nothing about this house that strikes me as obsolete. It seems like to me that the basic qualities of this house that made it a good house for people who lived in 100 years ago are still there. And probably a good deal less obsolete than houses from 40 or 50 years later, which were not built to the same standards.
Yes, here, here. I concur with Mr. Bauer and feel that the building, while obviously some of the surface materials are different and changed, the overall form and massing is very much identifiable as welcoming you to Ball Square. You know, we see these 2 3/4 story gambrel roofed houses, and you know where you are in the city. It's very distinctive, and this is part of the streetscape that makes that area distinctive among all the neighborhoods in Somerville. There's no other neighborhood with kind of clustering of these gambrel roofed 2 3/4 story buildings. So yeah, and I was not particularly moved or concerned by the structural report, which seemed pretty mundane relative to many of the basements I've been in with engineers and inspectors and contractors poking around.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kelly. Any other thoughts from people? I would concur. If I look at this, at the massing, it's the only alteration other than just siding and windows is that the front porch has been enclosed. I mean, the side porch, yes, but that's a minor little thing. So it is a pretty good reflection of its original self. It is part of a pretty much a pair within one next to it. And as Vice Chair Kelly said, these gambrels are kind of a thing in this former brickyard area, these streets. If you go around the corner in Willow and some of the Loudon and Kidder, there's a pattern of this type, often alternating between this and a straight gable. So, and the double bay, I think it'll be better preserved. And the reasons would be that it carries on the historic pattern of that neighborhood. It's reasonably intact, portrays its original form and massing. And the structure report, yeah, I mean, any client who wanted to keep the place, that would be like a drop in the bucket, like, oh, you repoint the walls, replace the footings beneath the interior piers. That's fairly minor stuff. I've seen some pretty radical structural upgrades to properties in the interest of keeping them, so this is actually fairly minor. Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, well, when I look at it, it's one of two in this section. On the other side of it, you have a house which is its twin, and then the other side you've got Mary Flynn Murphy, and on the other side it's abuts Lindell's, which we know is going to be demolished. And the streetscape here has changed significantly. Further down Broadway towards on the other side of Loudon is a cluster of similar houses. And then across the street on Willow, you get more of those type of similar houses. I agree that the massing is consistent, but I'm sort of I don't know. I see the merit in both sides of the argument here. I'd like to see it preserved, but I don't know what that preservation means, basically.
Thank you. To follow up on that, Alan, whether it means retaining it or picking up on some aspect of it, or when you...
Yeah, well, as you know, when we look at something to be preferably preserved, there are different degrees of preferably preserved. I mean, we could say that we'd like to see it left as it is, in which case the owner would have an option to wait out a demolition delay period of 18 months, or would like to just restore it and renovate it. Or basically, we could look at what that preservation means in taking detailed drawings and sketches and photographs of what it is for archive purposes. So somewhere between those two bookends is somewhere where that preferably preserved would fit. I'm concerned that it would leave an orphan next door, which is a concern of mine, because I think that pairs this landscape, and I think Vice Chair Kelly hit it on the head. This is right in Ball Square. Yeah. People are going to be getting off the Green Line and looking at places here. This is going to become a residential area, even more so. And this sort of heralds the way into the architecture of that particular area. So I'm seeing consistency of the landscape and the streetscape, but I'm also seeing it interrupted by commercial development right next door to it with Lindell's, although it has that at present.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Alan, Mr. Bingham, there, in that this property is presumably destined to be part of the same development as its neighbor, there will be a lot of pressure to not keep the building because it's worth more as a collective together. And I agree that this building on the flip side does have a lot of value in that it's part of a pair and that it also kind of frames that neighborhood. So yeah, what preservation becomes would be determined, obviously.
Is there a reality to this that all we're doing is preserving this for 18 months? Whereas now that we have an opportunity of being able to take good drawings for archival purposes and photographic evidence of the structure, that we could get more of a preservation context now by looking at what that preservation would really entail.
I'm not sure if you mean starting out right off with the premise that what will be desired is documentation.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, the applicant is the same as the applicant who is looking to redevelop the Lindell site. And so given that, does this really mean that they're really going to wait out the demolition delay period anyway? And so what we should take the best step possible for the preservation of this for the city, which might be the documentation of the structure.
So yes, thank you for that. In the past, we have basically gone with a preferably preserved status and then pretty quickly segued into that process and delay ends well before 18 months. I think that in more recent times, we've allowed ourselves another option to allow not preserved with conditions. And this staff could kind of jostle my memory here, but is that something that is possible here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Sarah, if you would like to speak, go for it.
I'm smiling for that very reason. Yes, Mr. Chairman, at the bottom on all of your staff reports, there is on all of your preferably preserved staff reports, there is an option that you have which states that you can vote something not preferably preserved with conditions, and those conditions can include items such as photographic documentation, architectural drawings, salvage, etc. So we provide you with a list at the end of the preferably preserved staff report so that you could use that as one of the options when you call it to vote.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, that kind of makes sense here because, you know, seeing which way the wind is blowing, this site is too valuable as it's, you know, 50 feet from a future T station. It's going to become sooner or later part of the block. They might just wait it out. I really don't see someone holding onto the structure. So I think that might be a good option in this case to say, let's just get it documented, wish it well, rather than go through the motions of the whole delay. But we haven't really heard from Mr. Bauer or Mr. Kelly about that. What do you all think?
I agree that that could be, you know, that it's most likely that this structure will be gone. And so I think the question is, do we take that as a foregone conclusion and establish the terms for documentation, et cetera? Or do we, you know, go with, I think, the way that we were all generally feeling about this, which is it's a structure that should be preferably preserved. Without the context of the building or the lot next door, I don't think we'd be having this particular bit of conversation. I think we would be simply voting it preferably preserved. And in some ways, I kind of feel like that is the way that we should move forward, is thinking about this structure sort of in that way. But
I think that's my conclusion as well. On it. I think we should be careful not to write off too quickly what's going to happen on buildings. Our job under the ordinance is to determine whether it's preferably preserved, and if so, then that starts the review period in which we see where we can get to with the owner in terms of a resolution on it. And I think that's the direction I would go in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I feel better about that approach than, I feel that the things that we've indicated are not preferably preserved are, in pretty derelict condition, which this is not. This is not a falling down, difficult to restore kind of structure. So yeah, I think I would feel more comfortable simply voting on this without relying on what we think is going to happen, or is most likely to happen, because of course things change. And so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm sorry, thank you. Through you, I don't want to take any longer than I know you guys have stuff in front of you, but yes, I want to echo what Vice Chair Kelly said. Rather than trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, what somebody might or might not do, you have to vote really based on the merits of what you think this building brings. And if you think that you are satisfied with getting the level of preservation, a sufficient level of preservation, by going with not preferably preserved with conditions, then I would recommend that you do that. I think that probably not every building is meritorious of an 18-month delay, but that doesn't mean that a building that is not meritorious of that 18-month delay doesn't mean that they're not meritorious of having documentation of that building done. So it's really up to the commission as to which way they want to go on these things. But I just wanted to echo Vice Chair Kelly's point.
Yeah, thank you. And I see it both ways. It's a very hypothetical because you could kind of draw a lot of what ifs, what between this project, or what conditions would you then decide to not preferably preserve with conditions? Is it something that's too far gone? Or I certainly would be okay with making this preferably preserved. I do feel it's a significant building, and it's a good point of, is it throwing in the towel too quickly to just say it's going to go anyway, so let's just take a picture and move on? That is sort of moving in two different directions. So if the sense of this commission is that we'd rather go that way, I would support that as well. How about you, Alan? You were the other ones thinking this way. What are your thoughts?
I think I've expressed my thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's. Well, yes.
Yeah, I move that we vote to find 722 Broadway preferably preserved.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, roll call. Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mr. Bingham?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. And findings, I would suggest that we bring up its role on the streetscape, especially in relation to its immediate neighbor. It's sort of a pair. It retains its original massing largely. What else?
Has its original fenestration, and in addition to noting the house right just next door to it on Broadway, it's also a piece with all the houses, or many of the houses down Willow Avenue on the other side.
Yes, it's streetscape and immediate neighborhood. Which itself is fairly distinct in Somerville.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We have a motion to accept those findings.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And so thanks for and for coming to us with this. And obviously the next step is to meet with staff and decide what preservation may or may not mean.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and we will have our administrative assistant reach out to set up an MOA meeting with you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Moving along, we have 3 cases that are all part of one development, but we're going to continue to take them separately, even though they'll be sort of discussed with a lot of overlap. And the first is HPC DMO 2022.01, 51 Broadway. Applicant is Ben Rogan. The owner is CDA Realty LLC. An application is to demolish principal structure. Mr. Rogan is an applicant here.
Mr. Chairman, Ben Rogan was here. Can the applicant team raise their hand? And if you are not part of the applicant team, please don't raise your hand. Jordan Smith has his hand raised. Victor, can you go ahead and unmute him?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Jordan Smith, again, Land Use Counsel from Sullivan and Worcester for the applicant. Back here tonight, obviously, to discuss each of these projects or these sites with you, these houses individually, but also wanted to provide them, a little bit of context as well for where they are, this site, what's changed here, and say first of all that we took to heart your comments from last time. We understand that these projects individually and collectively, removing them from the streetscape will have an impact on the streetscape, and wanted to note that what we are proposing to put there is actually is the development we are working very hard with in the city to honor I just say pay homage to Somerville's history. It's going to be a brick building, and we've worked very closely with the planning staff to make sure the materiality of that is aligned with a historic, the streetscape and development history of Somerville. And this is a changing neighborhood area, but we're coming here understanding that this is going to have an impact, and we want to work with the commission to make sure that it's done well and correctly. I'd say to that end, we have reached out with and engaged Epsilon to figure out the best way to do that with this project. And so understand that while we may feel that finding it not preferably preserved but with conditions we think would be sufficient, understand that the commission for this building, I should say, could be for 51 Broadway we think would be sufficient. But we also are looking forward to working with the commission, working with planning staff, Senior Planner White, moving forward on this project. And if you have further questions on this, happy to answer them individually for each building or collectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to make sure that this is stated. The project that they are referencing has been discussed with our colleagues. It is not zoning compliant yet. It is not approved. It still has a bit of work to do to be considered zoning compliant, so what you see may change. And also just to clarify that when he says he's worked with preservation staff, it has not been with me or Sarah White in regards to the future project.
Thank you for clarifying, Wendy.
Thank you. Okay, is that it from the applicant? So we will move to the public comment portion of this hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak about this case?
Any member of the public wishing to speak on this case, please raise your hand. As a reminder, you'll be given 2 minutes, and your comments will need to be directly related to the proposed determination of preferably preserved on this item. All right, Victor, if you can unmute, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Elio LaRusso, please make sure when you start your public comment to also give your address.
Yes, good evening. My name is Elio LaRusso. I'm from the 11 George Street, which is about 50 yards, 60 yards from the proposed development of 51 Broadway. And I find it disheartening that these developers are coming into our city and just, want to demolish everything in sight and just build big boxes. I mean, it's disheartening. I mean, this is significant. This is a significant structure. It's typical of what's around us. I mean, if you go up and down George Street, Lincoln, Austin, Benedict, I mean, this is Somerville, 2 and 3 families. I've been here 50 years, and now it just breaks my heart to see, these buildings being knocked down, and we're losing our history. I mean, this is Somerville. We grew up going up and down the streets of East Somerville, the Hill, Union Square, Davis Square, and just seeing all these homes, being gone. And they're proposing, 6-story buildings. We have one on the corner of my street that's being proposed. I mean, they're enormous, and they're not fit for the neighborhood. And I think that we should hold on to our 2 and 3 family homes in the city, and they're not building these boxes. There's places for boxes. They should be built at Assembly. All right, they shouldn't be built on Broadway and on corner of Broadway and George Street. And I think this property should be preserved, and I don't think that it should be knocked down. And I hope that this board really takes this into deep consideration, because this is only you'll only be setting up a precedence of what's coming down the pipeline. Before you know it, they'll be bulldozing all of Broadway down, and they'll be building big box developments with no appearance to the neighborhood. And so I hope you really take this under consideration, and and hopefully I've expressed myself enough tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak?
Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand, and we will go ahead and unmute you. All right, I see your hand's going up and down very quickly, so it's a little hard to. All right, so I see a hand for Kim Lamb. Victor, if you, I don't know if Kim can hear us. It says that they need to enter a PIN to be able to come in. So we're going to give them a second and we'll come back to them. All right. Ron, you are next. Victor, if you could please unmute Ron for me.
Yeah, Ron Cavallo, 70 Victoria Street. I've been vocal this evening, and I've expressed my feelings a number of times, and I feel strongly about those feelings, as is crystal clear. I really respect what Elio has said, but respectfully, I really need to say that I look at this property, it's right in front of me. I see it as a site that would. My frustration is that I strongly believe that there is a benefit to taking down these marginal structures and putting in modern structures that generate significant revenue. This is Broadway. This is not a particularly attractive part of the city. And a new structure, I think, would add significant value and be a boost to the neighborhood, not a negative to the neighborhood. And I certainly understand what Elio is saying, but I don't see the city being crowded in. I don't see the loss of anything significant overall in the city, just the opposite. I've expressed it a number of times. This whole idea about, hearkening to the industrial past and, preserving workers' cottages, that kind of thing. I think that's just completely overreaching. I see the structure as being very generic, having limited architectural value. There's very little left. And I see the city truly benefiting on so many levels by this structure being replaced. Now, I am making it clear I am pro-development, but I am also pro-preservation of that which is worth preserving. And this is why I have an issue with this commission. It overreaches, in my opinion. And you can argue against it, but I have examples of it. Now, again, I see this as a generic building. I think taking it down is a benefit to the neighborhood. I think it's a benefit to the city. And we need revenue, and I'd like to see the city become a 21st century city with contemporary structures that are efficient, that have limited footprint, that add revenue to the city and add to the streetscape. This part of the city is very distressed. I'm through.
You are over 2 minutes. If you would like to take a couple seconds to wrap up your thoughts.
I've completed my thoughts.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who want to speak?
Let me look to see if anyone else has their hands raised. All right. I believe Kip Lamb is still having some issues connecting, but they previously had their hands raised, but it's down now. All right, so Rick Costa, if you would like to make a comment, if you'd like to keep your hand raised, it's gone up and down a few times, so I can't tell. All right, so last call for anyone who would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. All right, Mr. Chairman, I do not see any hands raised at this time. For public comment, you can close the public comment.
Okay, in that case, I will close the public comment portion of this case. And if staff would give a quick synopsis of their staff report for this property, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Sure. So the applicant is here for a determination of preferably preserved. They had previously been determined in last month's meeting to be historically significant. As a reminder, the property is located on what was once Mount Benedict in East Somerville and was constructed in 1882 or 1883 based off of our earliest records of residence there. The property appears to have had a mirroring property at 49 Broadway, but was not attached as with 53 and 55. The maps show that they were actually physically detached. Alterations include replacement windows, modern replacement doors, vinyl siding along portions of the foundation. Comparing the structure with neighboring structures built in the same style and period, is likely the brackets along the roof lines were removed and the mansard roof was removed along the sides and rear facades. That is it.
Thank you. Okay, let's take it up as a commission. I would entertain thoughts from fellow commissioners.
I'll go. I think that the reasons that we identified these properties as significant last month, we made the correct judgment on it. And the question now is whether they're preferably preserved. And my judgment is that they are. They are I know we're going to go through them individually, but they're structurally intact. Their massing is still there. Their roof lines are still there. Their basic fenestration is still there. And so I, taking those things individually and collectively, think that they are preferably preserved.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with Mr. Bauer, and one of the things about this particular, about 51 Broadway, but the grouping with 53 and 55 is that because of the slope of the land where we have effectively the exposed or walkout basement level, and that makes these 4-story 19th century structures, which we don't have a lot of wood framed 4-story structures. And I think that having something of that vintage with that height, where we are going to be seeing larger buildings going in and trying to sort of mesh the new with the historic fabric of the side street neighborhoods and things like that with older, smaller structures, as we see on Benedict behind. I think that this group of 3 actually does a really nice job of transitioning from larger scale on Broadway to smaller wood frame scale on side streets like Benedict. So I think that they serve a particularly interesting purpose in that way. They're, again, the sort of the siding and the doors and that kind of thing are junky, but the basic form is still there, and it would be very easy to restore them to their original lovely selves.
Thank you. Guess I'll just jump in. I agree with that sentiment. This, while it's detached from its 2 immediate neighbors, it really continues a very solid eave line, the mansard roof, everything. Those 3 addresses or 2 buildings have a very consistent line. They do serve as a good transition between whatever larger stuff gets built over there by the industrial site to the right and the very residential streets to the left there. This does have a good, it has its original massing. Really the only thing that's changed is the siding, and I think that they've at some point took off whatever detailing would have been around that front entry door and the stairs, but otherwise, but for siding and windows, it's really the same. So it's reasonably intact still too, in terms of massing and fenestration. So those are my thoughts. Anybody else?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Eric, and I agree also with Vice Chair Kelly on the entry, the street level entry of the 51 Broadway, which I find to be quite unique and interesting. And when I look at 53, I notice it's got a lot of architectural features still intact on it as well, despite having a little sun and anchors and things like that adorning the outside. But the brackets are still there and some of the other features. So the massing is consistent, the streetscape is consistent, and it's an interesting cluster of buildings that I think present a gateway into Broadway. On the other side of the street, you've got commercial and industrial buildings, and some garbage yards and things like that, truck yards. But I find that on this side of the street, it's residential, and it does preserve some of the context of what that part of East Somerville was.
And is.
It still is, yes.
Thank you. Also, I just note, I'm looking at the plan that was submitted along with this, and it should be noted that these structures represent a very small portion of that. Obviously, I know in the developing world that small changes can make big impact, but a lot can happen here with these structures remaining. So.
Yeah.
So I guess it sounds like we've reached somewhat of a consensus and could move to a vote on this.
I would move that we find 51 Broadway preferably preserved.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second by Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do a roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And for our findings, I suspect these will be similar for the adjacent properties, but that's a different case. To me, the extent to which the original massing is there, the role it plays in its immediate streetscape, part of a collection of buildings, similar massing, similar sight lines. What am I forgetting? Anything?
I think the ground floor entry to the basement is an interesting feature too. That's unique.
Basically a 4-story.
Yeah, basically it's a 4-story.
Yeah, that's true. That's unusual for Somerville, at least in the older buildings. We have some newer ones that way. Okay. Anyone want to add to that, or should we adopt those? Vote to adopt those.
I move that we adopt the findings just discussed.
When we talked about streetscape, did we include specifically this building in relation to its companions?
Yes, on the left, on the
Okay.
west. Yes.
Okay, so I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Do a roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thank you. And since we have the same applicant for 2 more properties, let's just move over to 53 Broadway. Is there anything that the applicant would like to talk about? And this is a separate case, so you have your moment if you want to speak about 53 Broadway.
I think you need to read the case number into the record.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. It's HPC DMO 2022.02, which is 53 Broadway. Applicant is Ben Rogan, owner CDA Realty LLC, and the application is to demolish the principal structure. Would the applicant like to speak about this particular case?
Yes, again, Jordan Smith, Land Use Council with Sullivan and Worcester. This is one, the structure in particular, we have heard again the commission's comments and understand that it is connected to the building next door. To that end, again, we have engaged Epsilon to help us, and they're experts there, I should say, in historic preservation. In that, it is truly our intent to try to figure out a way, and without getting too involved in the intricacies of the zoning code, I should say we are here going to be designing. This is a zoning compliant project, so I just want to note that. But in order to do that, and again, without getting into the complexities, there are frontage requirements, there are access issues, open space, all of these green score that require using lots and areas in this way. And it is, again, that we are working very hard, actually, as we speak, to try to figure out a way to not touch this property. And I understand that's just me saying this right now, but I want, I'll let you know we have been in contact with the owner at the adjoining property at 55. It would be our intent, and we were trying to figure out at this point, again, way to preserve and to update this entire property. So it'd be both sides. And so to want to just let you know that, again, that's part of the reason that we have engaged with Epsilon, Doug Kelleher there to figure out ways to do that. And again, the development will be stepping down as it gets over towards that more residential side as you cross over Benedict. And so that's what we are doing, and we plan to continue doing, and working with the commission on that. And again, here to answer any other questions you might have on that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any members of the public want to speak about this case?
Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand and you'll be given 2 minutes to speak on this item. Victor, Rick Costa put his hands down again. Can you unmute him I just want to make sure that he's not getting, that we're accidentally skipping him or he's having tech issues.
Sorry, what name was it?
Rick Costa?
He is self-muted right now.
Rick, if you had, if you wanted to make a public comment on this item, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and you'll have 2 minutes to make a comment.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. I am having some difficulties here. My apologies. So I am the owner of 55 Broadway, which is the adjoining property here. We're having an issue for some reason with the city communicating. I am not receiving any notices on this project, whether it be zoning or historical for some reason. I recently found out about this meeting. I hired counsel to look into this project, and about 4 days ago, I found out about this historical meeting. But when they say they were in touch with me, I've been in very brief conversations with the developer, one being today. But we have some grave concerns about what's going on around me, because these petitions are basically 3 houses, all historical, around my historical home, being torn down. So we have some grave concerns we're going to be addressing legally for this project. And I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention that we are not receiving notices on this project whatsoever. So maybe someone can check. We don't have a problem receiving our tax bill, but we have a problem receiving our notices on the project. So, I'm a lifelong resident of Somerville. I agree with Elio for a sense. I've been there for 50 some odd years. We have grave concerns about, tearing down buildings all around us, things being built in the back of me, 60, 70 foot buildings being built. So I just want to put it on record, we are not receiving notices, but we will be addressing things further through my counsel to see where that goes. So maybe we can fix that I start receiving some notices if possible.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, as far as the zoning is concerned at this point, it is my understanding, and Attorney Smith might be able to verify this. While Wendy and I are not working on the zoning component of this has not come before. It's only been internal discussions so far, I believe. Is that correct, Attorney Smith, as far as like a pre-submittal meeting or something like that? Have you even gotten that far?
We are at this point in front of UDC. There have been public notices put out regarding neighborhood meeting number 1. And so those public notices were given.
Okay, I'll check with the planner, and this is to Mr. Costa. I will check with the planner and mention this to them, and then they can look at the abutters list that were generated for this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman, just as a follow-up for Rick Costa, we do have a mailing address for them that was sent out for that property, and I don't know if it would be better if I just follow up with him separately tomorrow in email to double check that it's the correct mailing address that we have on file. And so if it's all right, I'll just email him tomorrow.
Sure, yeah, that obviously is kind of outside of the capabilities of this commission, but if staff or the city can straighten that out, that'd be great.
Perfect. Mr. Costa, I'll reach out to you tomorrow. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand and you'll be given 2 minutes to speak. All right, I do not see any hands. I'm going to make one more pass through. All right, Mr. Chairman, I do not see any further hands raised. You may close the public comment.
Okay. Closing the public comment portion of the hearing. And much like well, let's take it up with obviously very similar parameters as the building that we just heard at 51. Anybody want to start off with some volunteering their thoughts on this?
I would share that this is an even more important structure to the streetscape, given that it is attached to, it was built as an attached structure. And so to remove it obviously loses that portion of the structure, but also undermines the historic nature of the attached dwelling at 55. So yeah, I mean, and as we've already discussed, it retains its form and massing. The overall streetscape is benefited by this grouping of structures. The 4-story nature of these as wood-framed 19th century buildings is very interesting and does good things for the overall streetscape as it blends into the established neighborhood behind. So it's, yeah, in my mind, this is not a question as to whether this is preferably preserved. It should be kept.
Thank you. Yeah, I basically would agree with everything you just said, Robin. This is as good as the previous 51. In fact, it's more intact because it has more of its original detailing. It has brackets, it has wood siding, stuff like that. So I don't have much to add there. Anybody else want to weigh in on this in the commission?
But I would agree with both of you. But I just want to add to that not only do they independently stand, but 53 literally stands connected to 55. It not only, we're talking about destruction of streetscape, we're talking literally about destruction of the very building itself. And we've heard from the owner at 55 who is not in support of this plan. And although my decision to say that it's preferably preserved turns on the factors that we've already discussed, I would want to add that this seems to me like an obvious power play on the part of the owners to make it impossible for the owner of 55 to continue to stay there and use the house as he sees fit.
Yeah.
I don't think in my memory we've ever had a demolition case that involved removing part of a structure or as a townhouse or anything like that. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Nothing to add.
Okay.
I move that we vote to find 53 Broadway preferably preserved.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Bauer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And for the findings, I think they would be essentially as were for 51, which is that its relationship to the immediate abutting neighbors on both sides, is particularly the one that it's part of, and its role in that streetscape, its level of intactness, and that's an official word, It's 4-story, basically a 4-story duplex. It's part of that. Anything else?
It's conjoined with a twin mirror reversed on the other side.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
I move that we vote to adopt the findings that were just discussed. Can you tell that it's approaching 10 p.m.?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Roll call, Mr. Bauer.
Aye.
Mr. Bingham.
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And we have one more case to hear, which is the back side, the opposite side of 55 Broadway, which is 11 Benedict Avenue. It says HPC DMO 2022.03, 11 Benedict Avenue, applicant Ben Rogan, owner Christopher and Lauren Galvin. Do we have, and then the proposal is to demolish principal structure. Does the applicant like to make another appearance?
Yes, members of the commission, thank you. I know it's late, and I will be brief. Again, this is actually a site that was originally not going to be part of this development, and it was in discussions with planning staff to try to fix actually some truck turning and access issues. It's just again to note that we're trying to walk the line here of creating zoning compliant development, as you noted before, for 722 Broadway. These are areas that are changing and are slated to change. And again, we want to do that well and look forward to working with members of the commission and members of staff moving forward on this project to figure out the best ways to do that. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Members of the public, anyone want to speak about this case?
Any members of the public wishing to make public comment on this case, please raise your hand and you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. All right, Mr. Chairman, I am looking through. I do not see any members of the public with their hands up, but I will do one more pass through. All right, no members of the public have their hands up. You may close the public comment.
Okay, I close the public comment portion of this hearing. And that this actually, we did do this with the last one, but could you give us a quick synopsis of your staff report for this particular structure?
Yes. So the applicant is here to receive a determination of preferably preserved. They came before you last month and were determined historically significant. The property is located on what was once Mount Benedict in East Somerville and was constructed in 1871. And that date is determined by the Somerville city directories for the first listed residents at the site. Alterations to the property include replacement windows and doors, the installation of a shed dormer on the left. The rear porches and lean-to are later additions, and the addition of the covered porch on the front elevation is also a later addition. There are also installation of storm doors, vinyl siding along portions of the foundation. And if you compare 11 Benedict to contemporary Italianate structures in the neighborhood, it's also likely that the single gabled dormers are likely later additions from the original construction.
Thank you. All right, Commission, who wants to weigh in on this one? Just to start.
It's a lovely 150-year-old little structure, and it, it suits the streetscape very nicely. It contributes, it has a very similar sibling across the street retains much of its original form and massing and reads very much like a late 19th century structure. And so for those reasons, I would find it, I think it's preferably preserved.
Thank you. Yes, the structure is very nearly 150, 145 years old at least, staff report. And it has its original massing except for an enclosed doohickey above the front entry there and a couple dormers and a rear L, which is of less consequence. So, you know, it's reasonably there. Yes, it's covered in vinyl as a lot of the neighborhood there. And I just want to back up into, I recognize that the applicant has said a few times that expressed that things are in flux with this side of their development, and that I respect that things might change, but what we have before us is demo cases for these structures. So if they could find a way, obviously we'd like, when things are preferably preserved, it's because we'd like to keep them. But we haven't really responded to the applicant's comments about their intentions there. But in this particular case, I feel that this structure would be better preferably preserved. Anybody else? Mr. Bauer or Mr. Bingham, have any thoughts?
I tend to agree with you, Chair Parks.
Okay.
I do too, and with Vice Chair Kelly.
All right.
Then I would move that we vote to find 11 Benedict preferably preserved.
Okay. I will second that. And all in favor? Yeah, aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mr. Bingham?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And for findings, what should we say?
It retains much of its original form and massing, reads very clearly as a late 19th century structure, and contributes to the overall streetscape on which there are very similar looking neighboring houses.
Yeah, size buildings as well. They're very similar.
Scale.
Benedict.
Yeah, it's the scale really. They're not. It's not in a clutch of clones of this building type, but they're all of the similar vintage and gable, simple gable. You know, they all kind of have a relationship to their general character of massing.
Yeah.
Okay. That works for me.
I vote that we. I move that we vote to adopt the findings just discussed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Mr. Bauer?
Aye.
Mr. Bingham?
Aye.
Vice Chair Kelly?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. Okay, so that covers those three properties, and obviously the next step for the applicant is clearly they have some issues to work with zoning, and you know there's an 18-month period to work with staff here, and I would hope that there are some conversations about what can be done with these properties.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just address the applicant for a second. We will have our administrative assistant reach out to you to set up some meetings to start the MOA review process.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, those are our cases. Congratulations. We have some minutes to review and a CPC update. And which minutes are we looking at today?
We've got December.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, if I may, you have the December minutes, of which I fully acknowledge that I spelled your name wrong through the entire document, and I apologize for that. Realized that about a second after I sent it to you. The other part is we do not have January or February minutes. Adam was unable to be, at least in the last meeting, if I remember correctly, and we haven't received minutes for the month before. Our administrative assistant is going to be writing the minutes. She's going to review the videos for us, but that does take some time. And she very graciously agreed to do that. After the agenda had gone out, we realized she would do that for us. So you just have the December minutes for tonight.
Okay. Yeah, extend my thanks to the what would you call it, conscripted minute taker there.
So I had an item from the December minutes. Let me find it again. I think it was Davis Square. Take a look at the votes. And I'm looking at the bottom of page 3 to the top of page 4. It says the vote was 4-2 against making it preferably preserved, but the actual votes that are reflected seem to be 3-3. I assume that's actually not correct.
Yes, you are correct. I will go ahead and change that. It was you and Mr. Bingham who voted to preferably preserve.
Sharon Parks voted nay.
Correct.
And I would just note that there are a couple places where my last name has an extra E, and there is at least one spot where I'm referred to as Vice Kelly, as opposed to
I'll
Vice.
make sure to fix that. I am so sorry.
Yeah, and then there's not consistency between whether vice chair is hyphenated or not. It does not need to be hyphenated.
Okay.
Just for the record, Wendy, I will never criticize you for misspelling anyone else's last name.
Seriously, yeah.
Must deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So feel free to admit my E whenever.
You're
We'll
very
go back to the vote on Davis Square at the top of page 4. So correcting the vote on whether it's preferably preserved, but underneath that is a vote with regard to findings. And again, it shows a split. And my guess is that it's actually reversed, that the people who voted nay with regard to whether it's preferably preserved then voted yay with regard to the findings. And the people who voted, if the vote on findings was split, that the people who voted yay on preferably preserved probably voted nay on the findings. Does anybody remember?
I don't remember, but that is probably correct, yes.
So listen, Ryan Falvey is not here and Adam is not here. For the other people who are here, does that match your recollection?
I think this is for the Davis Square place, right, on Holland.
It's for the Davis Square place. And Mr. Bingham and I had voted yay on preferably preserved, and we just changed you to voting nay on preferably preserved, which matches the aggregate vote of 4-2 against. And then on the findings, I'm guessing that Mr. Bingham and I voted nay and everybody else voted yay. So I wanted to just ask Chair Parks and Mr. Bingham and Vice Chair Kelly whether that reflects your recollection as best you can make it out.
It does, yes.
Okay.
I will make that edit.
Yes. Right, so my mind is twisted here. So yes, on the on the preferably preserved votes, we have that backwards to where 3 of us voted no. Oh, wait, no.
No, I think the conclusion, I mean, the summary says 4 people voted no, and so our recollection, Chair Parks, is that you had ended up voting no, and Mr. Bingham and I voted yes. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. Everybody was, and that's expressed correctly. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 2, yeah, 4. So that it's just that in the minutes, those. No, that's correct in the minutes.
So the minutes show that you voted yay on preferably preserved. So that's a mistake. It needs to be corrected.
Right, I was no.
And then on the finding.
Yeah.
Right, you were a no on preferably preserved, and then the findings, we think the votes were just reversed. So
yes.
that everybody who voted yes for preferably preserved voted no on the findings, and vice versa.
Yes, I agree. Okay.
Under Woodbine Street, it refers to Mr. Cavallo as Ron. Previously in the minutes, he's referred to as Ronald. I don't know if, we want to be consistent with that. And there's also in the, I guess it's the 3rd paragraph, saying during public comment, Kate St. Laurent abuts the back of 16 Woodbine Street. She has not issued the demolition. Is that to be, she has no issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also on that Woodbine Street property where we sit, the paragraph that starts with Mr. Wiley pointed out that though, I think just to clarify that we didn't say that there was a provision for the commission to consider hardship. I think the thing is that there is no provision in the demo delay ordinance to consider hardship, only in upkeep of local historic district properties. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And when I wrote these minutes this past week, so yes, that is better reflects the meeting.
Kind of saying what you're saying, but I think it makes it a little bit clearer that if we just sort of say that there is no provision.
And I also think it should be clarified, rather, the way it's written right now, it's indicating that Mr. Wiley is confirming that the applicant is experiencing hardship. Because we have specific definitions of hardship, I think we should not use that language outside of, having reviewed that. So I think it would be more accurate to indicate while we have been told that the applicant is experiencing hardship.
Okay.
Does that make sense to people? Is that being too picky?
No, that makes sense.
I think that's correct.
All right, I wrote that down to make that change.
I have no further comments on these minutes.
Yeah, I don't either. You too. Oh, wait a minute. Tomorrow? During the commission. Oh, right, 82, 86. Okay, because we voted on preferably preserved status for which Prospect Street? No, we did an MOA, that's right. So 8286, we deep voted against. Or,
The one that had a fire,
yeah, no, okay, I was confusing that.
the ironwork property.
Yep. Okay, I have no other comments. So should we entertain a vote, a motion to accept the December meeting minutes as amended?
I move that we vote to
I'll
adopt.
second that.
Yeah, that.
Okay. Thank you.
Accept the.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll do a roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
and I vote yes. And that just leaves us with a CPC update. Do we have anything to talk about tonight on that?
Only that tomorrow night is the major meeting where people will be bringing projects forward. So there's not much to discuss about what we did. We talked more about procedural issues last month. So tomorrow night will be a long meeting. It will be the big meeting of the CPC.
Okay.
So, but I won't be able to report on it next month. I'll have to report the month after because the next HPC meeting I will be away, I'm afraid. Well, I'm not afraid, but I will be away. I'll be sailing from Spain to Sardinia on the day.
I'm so sad for you. That sounds awful.
It is. But somebody has to do it, Vice Chair Kelly.
Oh, God.
To Sardinia, okay. I thought you said South India. It's like you've got a bit of a trip there.
No, South India is not very close to Spain.
No. Good for you.
On to Malta.
Yeah.
That sounds delightful.
So yes. So I'll give you a full report the following month, if that's acceptable.
Sure. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Is there anything else?
We have a special hearing coming up. Do we have a quorum for that? The 20-something?
28th, I think it is, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
the 28th.
Will you be around for that?
Yeah, I'll be at that. I guess most of us will. This is the church.
Yeah.
125 Highland, yep.
Okay.
Great.
Well, those are our That's about it for the published business here. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Otherwise, call it a day.
Just before you go, if anybody's interested in reading it, I've been researching Mr. Cram, who was the architect. He wrote extensively about the fallacy of white supremacy and Gothic architecture. I have a number of his books, if anybody would like to borrow them in anticipation of the 28th.
Okay. Thanks for that.
Thank you. I move that we vote to adjourn.
Second that.
All in favor of adjourning? Aye.
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 Bauer,
Aye.
Bingham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Yay.
Thank you.
Not super late, not super early though, so
Yeah.
we'll do this. Got a lot covered. So
You did.
I'll see you all in a few weeks then.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.